I remember that morning as if it were yesterday. The first light of dawn was gently coloring the streets as I walked the familiar path to work. I was an elementary school teacher, my calm expression hiding the pain of losing Anthony, my beloved husband, 10 years ago. Anthony had disappeared in a tragic boating accident during a storm at sea, leaving me heartbroken and without a body to bury. I threw myself into teaching the children in the classroom. Not just math and science, but kindness and resilience too. Our experiences shape who we are, I would gently tell my students, my words reflecting my own journey through loss. But that day, an unexpected twist was waiting for me. It was the last day of classes before summer break. During recess, I was in the staff room watching a TV report when I saw something that froze my heart. The reporter announced they were introducing Anthony Parker, a respected community leader, and his wife Kendra Campbell in Los Angeles. The camera focused on a smiling man next to a woman. I gasped, my eyes glued to the screen. It was him, my Anthony, alive. Impossible, I whispered, my hands shaking as I held my coffee cup. My colleagues noticed my pale face and anxiety, approaching me with concern. One of them asked if I was okay, but I barely registered their voices. I was completely absorbed by the impossibility of what I had just seen. That night, alone at home, I pored over old photo albums. The happy pictures of Anthony and me stood in stark contrast to the reality the report had shown. How can this be possible? He was supposed to be dead, I told myself, my mind struggling to comprehend the unimaginable. I sat in the living room, surrounded by Anthony's photos. I picked up one of them, caressing the smiling face of Anthony in the picture. Is it really you? I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. As the night wore on, a firm resolve grew within me. I needed answers. I had to go to Los Angeles, I decided, determined to uncover the truth. The phone rang. It was my sister, Stephanie. She asked if I was okay, noticing I hadn't sent any messages since the afternoon. With a trembling voice, I told her I thought I had seen Anthony on TV, that he was alive. Stephanie, in disbelief, reminded me that Anthony had died 10 years ago. But I insisted, telling her I knew what I had seen, that he was in Los Angeles with a new woman. Stephanie tried to calm me down, suggesting I might have seen someone who looked like him. But I was certain it wasn't a mistake. After hanging up, I stood and walked to the window, looking up at the starry sky. I needed to know the truth for myself, I said aloud, as if seeking approval from the stars. I'm going to Los Angeles tomorrow. School's out for summer, and I have no commitments, I decided. I felt a mix of fear and determination as I made my plans for the coming months. The next morning, I found myself at the bus terminal, a small suitcase by my side, buying a one-way ticket to Los Angeles. My heart was pounding with the magnitude of my decision. This is the right thing to do, I told myself, trying to dispel the cloud of doubt. As the bus pulled away, I gazed out the window, watching the familiar city fade into the horizon. Anthony, what happened? Why did you disappear? I asked myself. Each passing mile brought me closer to confronting the unknown. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, there was a new light in my gaze, the light of someone seeking answers, regardless of what they might reveal. The bus arrived in Los Angeles in the early hours of the morning, bringing me to a new stage filled with possibilities and uncertainties. I disembarked, feeling like a stranger in search of a ghost from the past. This is where I'll find my answers, I murmured with determination. In a small cafe in the area I'd heard about in that report at school, I sat with a map and a list of addresses on my phone. Anthony, where are you? I wondered, tracing possible routes with my finger on the map as I sipped my coffee. I overheard two locals talking about a community leader named Anthony. One of them was praising Anthony Parker's work in the neighborhood, saying he had really changed things around here. I turned discreetly, paying attention to their conversation. Gathering my courage, I approached the two men. Trying to hide my anxiety, I asked if they knew where Anthony Parker lived, explaining that I was trying to find an old friend. One of the men, with a friendly smile, gave me Anthony's address. He warned me that Anthony lived very close by but was a very busy man, always involved in community projects. I thanked him, feeling a mix of relief and nervousness. As I walked through the streets of Los Angeles towards the address I'd been given, each step brought me closer to the man I thought I'd lost forever. I'm close now. I need to be prepared for what I'm going to find, I thought, rehearsing in my mind what I would say to Anthony. When I arrived in the area I'd been directed to, I went to the market to buy some basic items for the days I'd be spending there. Inside the market, a surprise awaited me. There was Anthony, in the flesh. For a few seconds, I couldn't react, unsure of what to do. I need to approach him. I have so many questions. Oh God, what will I say? What absurd excuse has he prepared for this moment? Did he think I'd never find him? As a whirlwind of questions swirled in my head, I approached Anthony. Anger was boiling inside me, but I was determined to confront him, to expose the pain of a broken heart and years of mourning. I approached Anthony with determination, ready to confront him and expose the pain of my broken heart and years of mourning. Let's see how he reacts, I thought, walking towards him with firm steps. Hello, Anthony, I said, my voice a mix of challenge and anticipation. I wanted to see shock on his face, guilt for disappearing without a trace. Anthony turned, and for a moment, our eyes met. I saw no recognition in them, just polite confusion. He asked for my name and if we knew each other, with genuine curiosity. I froze, my anger turning to surprise. I had expected recognition, a spark of memory. It's me, Anna, I said, forcing a strange smile, trying to hide the turmoil of emotions consuming me. Anthony smiled apologetically, explaining that he worked with many people in the community and sometimes confused names and faces. He extended his hand in a friendly gesture. My heart racing, I accepted his hand. I improvised, saying I was part of the neighborhood association and had heard a lot about his work. Anthony seemed pleased, asking if I attended the association meetings. I replied that I did occasionally, maintaining my disguise. I wanted to discover more, to understand why Anthony didn't remember me. As Anthony nodded and prepared to leave, he expressed hope of seeing me at future community events. I watched him walk away, a myriad of thoughts running through my mind. Does he really not remember me? Or is he pretending? And why? I wondered, feeling confused and frustrated. Leaving the market, I knew I needed a new plan. I need to approach him differently. I need to understand what really happened, I decided, determined to unravel the mystery behind Anthony's amnesia. Is he acting all of this? I thought, disturbed by the idea. After the encounter at the market, I walked through the streets of Los Angeles, lost in thought. I needed to observe Anthony closely, understand his current life, and above all, discover if there were any inconsistencies in his story. I decided to follow Anthony discreetly, maintaining a safe distance. I watched him interact with various people in the community, always with a kind smile and attentive attitude. He seems like a completely different person from the one I knew, I thought as I observed him from afar. My heart ached with a mixture of longing and confusion, wondering what had happened to the man I once loved. I sat on a park bench, strategically positioned to observe Anthony helping with a food collection campaign. Straining to hear nearby conversations, I tried to gather more details about his life. A woman on the neighboring bench commented that Anthony had been their pillar of support, arriving a few years ago and changing everything for the better. I leaned in discreetly, absorbing every word. He appeared a few years ago, so he hasn't been here all along, I whispered to myself, my curiosity growing. Determined to approach Anthony again, I decided to volunteer for the campaign. With a smile, I asked if he remembered me from the neighborhood association and if I could help. Anthony recognized me immediately, welcoming my assistance. As we worked side by side, I attempted to start a conversation, fishing for clues. Casually, I inquired how long he'd been in Los Angeles. Anthony paused, thoughtful, before explaining that it was a long story. He'd arrived about 8 years ago, but his memory before that was hazy due to an accident. His confession about memory loss hit me like a tidal wave. I froze, staring at him as a whirlpool of memories flooded my mind. Every shared moment, every happy instant we'd spent together now seemed like fragments of a past that existed only for me. He doesn't remember any of our time together. Do those memories mean nothing to him now? I thought, feeling a deep, sharp pain. Scenes of us dancing together, laughing under the stars, sharing intimate secrets filled my mind. Each memory felt like a leaf being cut from a present where they no longer existed for Anthony. He was the love of my life. He used to say I was the love of his life, and now I'm just a stranger to him, I thought, fighting back tears. Anthony noticed the sudden change in my expression and asked if I was okay, noting that I looked a bit pale. I shook my head, trying to compose myself. Yes, I'm fine. Just a bit surprised by your story. It must have been difficult for you, I replied, forcing a smile. Inside, I felt like I was experiencing a second loss, mourning the shared memories that had defined so much of my life. After finishing the volunteer work, I bid Anthony goodbye and wandered the streets of Los Angeles. His words echoed in my head as I grappled with the reality that the man I loved, in a sense, no longer existed. Sitting on the same park bench as before, I let my tears flow freely. Everything we experienced, every promise, every dream. It's as if they never existed for him now, I murmured to myself, overwhelmed by the pain of loss. As the sun set, I knew I had to make a decision. I went to a cafe for dinner, though I had no appetite. I knew I needed strength to face the coming days. Should I reveal my true identity to Anthony and confront the reality of his memory loss, or should I remain just an acquaintance, preserving the fragile piece of his new life? What should I do? How can I move forward knowing a part of me has been forgotten? I asked myself, aware that finding answers wouldn't be easy. As I pondered whether I should tell Anthony who I really was, whether I should revive a past loss to him, a conversation at the next table caught my attention. One woman mentioned seeing Anthony Parker's wife at school, praising her devotion. Another agreed, calling them the perfect couple and saying how lucky Anthony was, especially after all he'd been through. Hearing those words, I felt a pang of jealousy and pain. The perfect couple should have been Anthony and me. He's built a new life, I thought, a life where I don't exist. The reality of the situation hit me hard. After a difficult internal struggle, I decided not to reveal my true identity to Anthony. I can't destroy the life he's built. That would be too selfish, I whispered to myself. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't simply walk away. Though I wasn't sure I could keep these promises, I knew I needed some form of closure, some understanding of what really happened. I planned to approach Anthony not as his ex-wife, but as a friend from the community. I'll try to understand who he's become, and maybe then I can make peace with the past, I decided, feeling a mix of determination and sadness. With this plan in mind, I attended a community event one evening in Los Angeles. I wanted to observe Anthony and his wife Kendra, to better understand their relationship. When I saw Kendra next to Anthony, something stirred inside me. Something that had been vague the day I saw that report was now clear. Kendra was an old friend of Anthony's, a woman who had always been present at boating races and sailing events. During the event, I watched Anthony and Kendra interact. They seemed like a happy, harmonious couple, but I couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. There's something more to this story, I thought, curiosity and doubt mingling in my mind. In a moment of distraction, I approached a group of women talking about Kendra. One commented on how well-suited the couple was. Another added, with a smile, that their meeting had been unexpected. Kendra had appeared like an angel the day Anthony had his accident and saved him. She concluded that they'd been inseparable since, as if fate had bigger plans. I absorbed every word, feeling a knot form in my stomach. The story the women told was touching to them, but something didn't seem right to me. As I became more involved in the community activities with Anthony and Kendra, I began to notice tiny cracks in the couple's perfect facade. There were moments when Kendra seemed overly possessive, or Anthony appeared distant and lost in thought. One morning, I arrived at a community event, my heart pounding with anticipation and determination. Spotting Kendra, I approached her with a mixture of caution and curiosity. I began the conversation with a polite smile, commenting on how wonderful it was to see people so dedicated to the community. Kendra recognized me immediately and responded with a forced smile. She expressed surprise at seeing me there, adding that the community was important and we all had to play our part. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and I noticed her strained demeanor. Deciding to be more direct, I mentioned remembering that she and Anthony had known each other since their sailing days. I watched Kendra's reaction carefully as I spoke. Kendra showed some discomfort at the direction of the conversation but answered calmly. She confirmed they had known each other, but everything really changed after Anthony's accident. She called it a life-changing moment. Seeing that Kendra wasn't going to yield, I pressed further. I brought up the accident, expressing my long-standing confusion about why she hadn't tried to contact me after rescuing Anthony. Fighting back tears, I reminded her that she must have known I was his wife. I mentioned how Anthony often talked about his sailing friends, including her, and surely must have mentioned me too. Kendra, visibly shaken but trying to maintain composure, explained that at the time, everyone thought Anthony was dead. When she found him, he was confused and lost. She claimed she had only done what was best for him at that moment. Her words dripped with sarcasm. Feeling the tension rise, I challenged her. I questioned whether not contacting his family was really the best thing. I accused her of doing what was best for herself, not Anthony. I suggested she had taken advantage of the situation to get close to him, knowing he had a wife. Kendra's eyes flashed as she responded sharply. She told me to stop talking nonsense, insisting it was fate, nothing more. She called it a blessing, her chance with Anthony that she had been waiting for years. I felt a chill run down my spine as Kendra spoke those words. You talk as if you have some right to Anthony, as if his life was yours to take, I replied, my voice filled with disbelief and disgust. Kendra stepped closer, her eyes cold and malicious. She declared that she had always known she and Anthony were destined to be together. When he had the accident, when he needed someone, she was there. Unlike me, she hadn't left his side. She claimed she had saved him, not me, and now he belonged to her. Horrified by Kendra's blatant and shameless confession, I firmly responded. I accused her of speaking as if she had planned everything, as if Anthony's life was a game to her. Kendra laughed coldly and moved even closer. She patronizingly called me a dear, and said sometimes you have to take the reins of destiny. You can't wait for everything to be handed to you on a silver platter, she added. She then told me she wanted me to disappear and not interfere with what she had built. She threatened that if I kept digging into the past, I wouldn't like what I found. With a final menacing look, Kendra turned and left. I was left alone with my thoughts, frozen by the words I had just heard. How can someone comfortably say such absurd things out loud? I wondered, feeling a mix of shock and indignation. Kendra's brazen confession about taking the reins of Anthony's destiny, her lack of remorse, and her veiled threats strengthened my conviction that she had something to do with Anthony's accident. I need to uncover the truth, I thought to myself, for Anthony's sake, for my own, and for justice. Later that day, I picked up the phone, my heart pounding with anticipation of what I might discover. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number, feeling like I was about to open Pandora's box. But I knew I had to do this, not just for myself, but for Anthony and for the truth. As I waited for someone to answer, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever might come next. I dialed the number for the sailing club, hoping to gather some information. Los Angeles Boating Club, good morning, a friendly, calm male voice answered. I introduced myself as Anna and explained I was researching some old club members, specifically Anthony Parker and Kendra Campbell. I tried to keep my voice as neutral as possible. The man paused for a moment, then remembered them. He described Anthony and Kendra as excellent sailors and a great team. When I asked about Anthony's accident, the man's tone changed. He confirmed it had been a shock to everyone, occurring during a terrible storm when Anthony was sailing alone. I pressed further, inquiring about Kendra's relationship with Anthony. The man hesitated, then revealed that Kendra had always had a special eye for Anthony, but he was married and completely devoted to his wife. My heart skipped a beat at this confirmation. I asked about any investigation into the accident. The man mentioned a technical failure on the boat, possibly caused by the accident or sabotage. My blood ran cold at the word sabotage. He added that Kendra disappeared shortly after, which made sense given her unrequited feelings for Anthony. As he spoke, I felt my legs begin to shake. I quickly thanked him for the information and ended the call. Sitting there, I whispered to myself, sabotage. That's worrying. The shocking revelation about Kendra's possible involvement in Anthony's accident, coupled with her threats, made me realize I needed to tread carefully. I decided to approach Anthony, but in a way that wouldn't alert Kendra. Over the next few days, I found opportunities to get closer to Anthony at community events where Kendra wasn't present. Each encounter was a whirlwind of emotions, the pain of loss, confusion over Anthony's feelings, and the rekindling of old emotions. During a food donation event, I casually asked Anthony how he got involved in the community project. His gentle smile as he explained how he felt the need to connect with people after the accident made my heart ache. I could see a certain sadness in his eyes when he mentioned the accident. He still seems lost, trying to piece his life together, I thought to myself. As time passed, Anthony and I met several times, and a connection began to form again between us. It was a memory of what we once shared, and it filled me with both hope and fear. I noticed Anthony seemed confused by these new feelings. An inner conflict was growing within him. In a moment of candor, Anthony confessed to me. He felt strangely connected to me, but also wanted to remain loyal to Kendra. She had been there for him when he needed someone most. He wasn't sure what to do, but thought he needed to create some distance. His emotional turmoil left me feeling melancholic. I understood his sense of loyalty, but knew I had to act to reveal the truth about Kendra. I understand your loyalty, Anthony. I don't want to complicate things for you, I said, my voice filled with sincerity. Then I suggested a dinner with the three of us, as friends, to solidify our friendship. Anthony seemed surprised by the proposal, but agreed after some thought. He said it was a good idea, a chance to sort things out and move forward. That's wonderful, I replied, a plan forming in my mind. I suggested we make it a surprise for Kendra, telling her it was just a dinner with community friends. Anthony hesitated but liked the idea of a more casual gathering. He agreed, saying Kendra would probably enjoy it too. We set the date for next Friday, with Anthony offering to make all the arrangements. I smiled, but inside I was tense at the prospect of the coming confrontation. This dinner would be the stage for me to finally face Kendra in front of Anthony. I knew the risks, but the need to expose the truth about Kendra and possibly help Anthony recover part of his past was greater. The days leading up to the dinner were filled with tension for me. I spent time carefully planning how to approach Kendra and Anthony, trying to anticipate their possible reactions. On Friday, I dressed with a mix of nervousness and determination. I chose an elegant but understated outfit, wanting to appear friendly but serious. Today, everything might change, I thought, looking at myself in the mirror. Arriving at the restaurant, I saw Anthony was already there waiting. He looked anxious, constantly glancing towards the entrance. He feels the importance of this night too, I realized. Anthony stood up to greet me, saying he was glad I came. He expressed hope that Kendra would enjoy the surprise. I nodded, feeling a knot in my stomach as I replied that it would surely be an unforgettable night for all of us. I watched as Kendra arrived, her face registering surprise at my presence. "Anna, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice laden with suspicion. Anthony quickly intervened, explaining that he thought it would be nice for us to have dinner together as friends. He called it a surprise he had planned. Kendra smiled, but her eyes betrayed her distrust. She sat down, carefully maintaining her distance from me. The dinner began with light conversation, but I knew I couldn't postpone the inevitable. "Anthony, Kendra, there's something I need to say," I began, drawing their attention. Anthony looked at me curiously while Kendra seemed increasingly tense. I took a deep breath and continued, my voice steady. I told Kendra that since coming to Los Angeles, I'd heard a lot about her and Anthony, especially about how they got close after the accident. But there were things that still didn't make sense to me. Kendra swallowed hard, clearly uncomfortable. "What are you getting at, Anna?" she asked, trying to maintain her composure. I steeled myself, ready to confront Kendra with everything I had discovered. The time had come to reveal the truth, and I was prepared to face the consequences. Anthony watched in confusion, sensing the gravity of the moment. I began by telling Anthony that I'd heard about him and the accident. Looking directly at Kendra, I said that something didn't add up. She had been close to Anthony before the accident, and suddenly they were together, living in a different town. Kendra faced me, her expression hardening. She retorted that people change, that what happened to Anthony was a tragedy but also an opportunity for a new beginning. I pressed on, undeterred. "Opportunity? Kendra, I talked to people at the boating club. They said you disappeared right after the accident, devastated because Anthony never reciprocated your feelings." Anthony turned to Kendra, shock evident on his face. He asked if it was true, if they had known each other and if she had feelings for him before the accident. Kendra hesitated, then answered dismissively. She admitted to having feelings for him, to sailing together. She said that when she found him injured and confused that night, she knew it was her chance. "I saved you, Anthony," she declared. I continued, my voice growing stronger. I brought up the investigation into the accident, mentioning the possibility of sabotage. I pointed out that Kendra had technical knowledge about boatings and would have known how to sabotage Anthony's boat. As I spoke, I could feel the tension in the room rising, thick as fog on a cold morning. I watched as Kendra laughed coldly, asking if I really thought she was capable of such a thing. She turned to Anthony, questioning if he would believe a crazy woman like me. Anthony stared at Kendra, still in shock, trying to make sense of the situation. He said it was too much for him to process. Noticing Anthony's confusion and pain, I spoke firmly. I told him he had a right to know the truth. I challenged Kendra, saying that if she truly loved Anthony, she should tell him everything about the accident and how they really ended up together. A heavy silence fell over the table as Kendra looked from Anthony to me. It was a moment of truth, and I knew the words that followed could change everything. With a deep sigh, Kendra began to speak, her voice trembling. She confessed to Anthony that after finding him that night, she couldn't let him go. She saw her chance when he was confused and without memory, and she took it. She admitted to lying about his wife being dead and him being alone. I watched as the color drained from Anthony's face, his hands shaking. His voice was filled with disbelief and pain as he asked about his wife and what Kendra had done to her. Kendra confessed to lying, tears now streaming down her face. She said she did it for him, that she loved him, and thought they could finally be together. She acknowledged her selfishness, but pleaded for understanding, saying she had been desperate. As I witnessed this scene, I felt a mix of anger and sadness welling up inside me. I turned to Anthony, my voice firm but filled with emotion, and told him that I was his wife. I explained that Kendra had known everything all along. Anthony looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion and shock. He asked why I hadn't told him before, why he couldn't remember. I could see the deep sadness and confusion in his eyes. I continued, explaining how Kendra had threatened me, saying she would do terrible things if I tried to find him or reveal who I was. I told him how scared I had been, lost without him. Kendra, now sobbing, looked down. She said she had been afraid of losing Anthony, knowing he would leave her if he knew the truth. Anthony, visibly shaken by these revelations, suddenly stood up. He looked lost and devastated. He said he needed time to think, that it was too much for him. And with that, he left the restaurant, leaving Kendra and me alone with the weight of the revealed truths. I watched Anthony walk away, my heart constricting with pain and hope that the truth might finally begin to heal the wounds of the past. After that night of revelations, Anthony found himself in a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts. As he walked the streets of Los Angeles, he felt completely lost, trying to process the truth he just learned. The reality that his marriage to Kendra was built on lies, coupled with the shocking possibility that his accident might have been sabotage, hit him hard. And his wife, a woman he didn't even know, had been in the same city. How could I have been so deceived? Anthony muttered to himself, and Anna, my real wife, was there all along. He felt a mix of anger, guilt, and sadness. He remembered the moments of strange connection he'd felt with me, and now it all made sense. What he couldn't explain had been rooted in his forgotten past. Determined to find answers, Anthony went to the police station to check the file on his accident. The detective in charge, an older man with a serious expression, handed him the file with a warning that some of the content might be disturbing. Anthony's heart raced as he went through the file. The investigation detailed the technical failure on the boat, mentioning that the possibility of sabotage couldn't be ruled out. Does this mean someone might have tried to kill me? Anthony asked, his voice trembling slightly. The detective, observing Anthony carefully, confirmed it was a possibility they couldn't ignore, but unfortunately, they had no concrete evidence to confirm or deny the theory. Anthony left the police station feeling desolate. The pieces of the puzzle were fitting together, but the final picture was darker than he could have imagined. In the days that followed, Anthony sought me out. When he finally found me, he said he didn't know what to say, that it was all too much for him, but he felt he needed to understand. He needed to know more about us. Seeing Anthony's pain and confusion, I gently responded that I was here for him. I told him we would figure it all out together, that he wasn't alone. Together, we began the journey of unraveling Anthony's past. It was a journey that would lead us to face the pain of forgotten memories, but amidst the pain, there was a glimmer of hope. The possibility of rediscovery, and perhaps a new beginning for both of us. As we sat in a quiet park, looking at each other, the comfortable silence between us was broken only by the soft sound of leaves rustling in the wind. Anthony took my hand, his eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and affection. He told me he had thought a lot about us, about Kendra, about everything. He had decided to separate from Kendra and step away from his community activities for a while. He needed to process everything and heal. He wanted us to get to know each other better, to have the chance to know me again. I gently squeezed Anthony's hand in response. I told him I was here for him, that we had a second chance to rediscover our love, our life together. And I wanted to cherish every moment of that with him. Anthony smiled, a smile that lit up his face. He said being with me, rediscovering our memories, was like a part of him that was lost had returned. He wanted to create new memories, build a new life with me. I agreed, saying that although what we had been through was painful, it had brought us back to each other. That in itself was a miracle. Tears of happiness shone in my eyes. As we looked towards the future together, we knew we could rebuild a life full of happiness and meaning. Strengthened by a love that had withstood the test of time and adversity, Anthony and I were ready to weave new memories.